Yeah, we're live. Hi, guys.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to join us tonight. Tim Cohen and I are just tickled to be here with each and every one of you, and it's just an awesome time to be alive. We are in a very exciting time period in biblical history. How are you doing tonight, Tim?
I'm doing well. Good to be back with you, Chris.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Hey, Di. Good to
Yeah,
see you.
me as well.
Hang on, I gotta
You
fix
definitely
this.
always push the envelope on my understanding of things, and I really enjoy that. You know, many people seem to write off King Charles rather quickly, and I struggle with that just because of understanding how many check marks are really necessary. It can't be just a random bad guy. I know that's something you'd like to speak on, so I'll give you the floor on that.
Yeah, there are all kinds of claims out there. There have been historically, and you can go back, and I point this out at the beginning of my book, The Antichrist and the Cup of Tea. There are, endless names, on lists down through the centuries of potential antichrists, and things haven't changed. People are throwing out Macron, they've been throwing out Trump, they've been throwing out uh, alleged individuals in Israel, etc. But the reality is we have to go by scripture. And as I show in The Antichrist Cup of Tea, there's one individual in the history of the world, and only one, who meets those criteria. So if we think that we are, in fact, nearing the Lord's return, there are a whole series of things we could discuss around that and why, in fact, we are. If people believe that, then they must also believe that the Antichrist is alive and walking with the day. And in that circumstance, there is only one candidate and one person, that's King Charles III. So when we talk about his cancer, people from the beginning, people are eager to latch on to this notion. Oh, it can't be Charles. I mean, I've heard this forever, right? His mother's going to abdicate the throne, or she's going to give it to him, or whatever. I never actually thought he needed to be king, but now that he is, it doesn't harm the case in any way, shape, or form. It just actually gives him potentially more power and influence than he already had. But he was already running the world behind the scenes. And when we look at this claim of cancer, even in the press that came out, even in the UK and elsewhere, saying, gee, does he really have cancer? He doesn't seem very sick. He's back to work and his duties pretty quickly here. And now their line is, well, if he's got.
Hi, Diane. I'm having a bit of trouble. My granddaughter's just told me I'm getting trolled, so I'm trying to work out. Do you know how I can block people on my Facebook? Oh, you haven't got Facebook.
Cancer, he's going to survive it, right? It'll be one of those things that he lives with for the rest of his life, or he'll recover from it. The only thing they've said publicly is that he seems to be recovering well from it. There's no indication, in other words, that he's going to die from it. And let me point out, too, biblically, the Antichrist will receive a fatal wound and recover from that. Ostensibly, it will be him, that first beast of Revelation 13. And the world will follow after that first beast as a consequence of the recovery. Now, that first beast is actually literally this imagery here of this beast with feet like a bear, body like a leopard, mouth like a lion, to whom the dragon, over here, it gives this power, throne, and great authority. Charles has that imagery, and that beast literally represents him personally in heraldry, as I discuss and show in the book. So he's the one, in other words, ostensibly, who receives that fatal wound and recovers. Now, people have asked me, gee, might he have some surgery, to cut out some cancer or something, or could it be like that, some brain surgery or whatever? Well, we don't even know what kind of cancer he has. Nobody's ever said. There's been no public release of any kind concerning.
If he's got cancer at all.
Well, other than it's not prostate cancer. That's really the only thing that they have said, and that he seems to be recovered well from it. So we don't need to be concerned, based on the releases publicly, whether he's going to die or not. There's no indication of that. Now, biblically, I would say it's impossible for him to die until Armageddon. Even when the mortal wound is received by that first beast, he'll be possessed by the devil and recover from it. And I say possessed by the devil because the Antichrist in 2 Thessalonians 2 is one of two individuals referred to as the son of perdition in Scripture. And it's translated perdition because it's a unique word for destruction. Judas was the first individual, and he was possessed by the devil before he went to betray Christ, right before Christ's crucifixion at the midpoint of the crucifixion week. Likewise, the Antichrist, this first beast of Revelation 13, is the son of perdition because he'll be possessed by the devil right before he betrays Israel and the church in a very overt way at the midpoint of the tribulation week, right before the Great Tribulation itself commences. So at the midpoint of the 7 years preceding Armageddon. Both individuals, the son of perdition, both possessed by the devil. Judas first, and then, of course, at the end of the days, the Antichrist, the top Antichrist among many, historically and in our contemporary world today. So Charles is not in any danger of dying. He's not going to die in a final sense until he is cast down to hell at Armageddon.
You know, really the one thing that stood out for me was the year he was born, as there was so much significance with that time period, as in 48 was the formation of Israel. And in that general time period as well, the Apocrypha was found in the Qumran caves, more than just the Apocrypha, scrolls that go all the way back to the beginning. But the time period was significant to me. And then his mother's explanation of him and his birth that you explained as well. There's so many things, everything from his lineage, you know, on his mother's side and on his father's side, the kings before him, the fact that pretty much the entire world behind the scenes opposed him. Back then, you know, Klaus Schwab, before he stepped down, he was the man that he answered to. So it's fascinating to see other people think otherwise. It's just, it can't be just a random bad guy. And that's really the biggest thing.
Well, it's ignorance when people think otherwise. It's people allowing themselves to be misled by false teachers, by false prophets in some case, by people who pretend to know a great deal more than they do biblically.
Yeah.
People who pretend to know more about world
Diane, I just found out how to do it. I have blocked him.
leaders than they do biblically.
I'm just going to double
Or
check.
historically or contemporarily. So, you know, Emmanuel Macron, he has none of the evidence to suggest that he's the Antichrist scripturally. He doesn't have the imagery of the first beast of Revelation 13. He does not have the name calculation on the biblical numbering system by any name or title by which he's known, you know, historically, globally, or otherwise. He doesn't have the lineage. He doesn't have the power globally. Charles has the power globally. You know, we talk about the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab stepped down. That's true. But he's still behind the scenes as the founder of the World Economic Forum, and he is still a knight of King Charles III. He is still under Charles and always has been. The WEF was founded shortly after Charles' investiture in July 1969 as Prince of Wales, and the entire time the WEF has been under Charles. That has never changed. The United Nations is under Charles, and people say, well, how can that be? The United Nations has its own Secretary General, right? And the United Kingdom, which has Charles as its king now, and formerly just as its Prince of Wales. And by the way, folks, he remains forever the 21st Prince of Wales.
Yeah, Dan Bongiorno, he was sticking up for Trump in the Epstein papers.
Being king doesn't suddenly make him not Prince of Wales anymore.
And I think that's why there's a bit of controversy with him.
He is both created and invested forever as the 21st Prince of Wales. His son, William, is just created but not invested formally as the 22nd Prince of Wales. But even so, William doesn't have the imagery, and he doesn't have the name calculation, and he doesn't have the power behind the scenes, never has, never will. When we talk about the United Nations, you know, that goes back to the League of Nations, right, Chris?
Right.
The League of Nations itself, for the most part, goes back to the Royal Institute of International Affairs. A lot of people don't know that. You know, the League of Nations came out of World War I, the United Nations out of World War II. We're coming up on World War III soon, and out of that comes the global government under the Antichrist. I'll outline that in a moment. So the global government is near, in other words, the World War II precedes the formation of the global government. It precedes the start of the Great Tribulation. A lot of people don't realize that. They think that the Great Tribulation will be World War III. No. If anything, it'll be most aptly likened to World War IV. So we have the United Nations came out of the League of Nations after World War II. The League of Nations came out of the Royal Institute of International Affairs after World War I. Who is over the Royal Institute of International Affairs, Chris? Do you know?
King Charles.
Yeah. And before he was king, it was Prince Charles who was over it.
Right.
Ever since July 1969.
Since his investiture.
Yeah. And the Royal Institute of International Affairs is also known as Chatham House. It's based in London. Always been headed by a British royal. And since 1969, that's been Charles. What a lot of people also do not know is how the Royal Institute of International Affairs itself came into existence and what its purpose has been from its inception. Do you know?
No, I don't.
Yes, I actually document that in the second edition of the Antichrist and the Cup of Tea, in this 2024 edition that is documented. The Royal Institute of International Affairs, Chatham House, was created for one purpose only, and that was to implement a global government under the British monarch. That was the only reason it was created. And so when we have the League of Nations and the UN coming out of that lineage, what we have is the beginning of that global government under the British monarchy. And so when Charles, as Prince of Wales, said, hey, I want to see and I love this example, so I use it often, but when Charles said, I want to see a global security lecture at the United Nations, for example, as Prince of Wales, he got what he wanted. And he personally wrote and delivered the first global
it's good to see you.
United Nations himself.
Okay, Diane, I just checked that. Vast, I've had someone break into my Facebook account and troll me and troll my family. So, Di, I just learned how to block everyone completely. So that's good.
So now there's an annual global security lecture because of Charles. He stated in the past that he wants a standing UN army with himself as its commander.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that. So that's coming. You know, when they put teeth, in other words, the UN Security Council down the road to this reformed UN Security Council. So I think that the global government is coming out of the United Nations, an expanded Security Council to 10 permanent members. I wrote that even in the first edition, the 1998 edition of the Antichrist and Cup of Tea. And that is still where we're headed. And in 2024, last year, all the world agreed, including the United States, agreed to reform the UN Security Council and to expand it.
So I'm curious, how does the president of our nation fit into this?
That is a great and a scary question, both.
Because there's so much deception out there, so much speculation. Like the other day, I mentioned to you that he was influencing Netanyahu for a two-state solution that turned out to be false. Sometimes it's so difficult to see through the propaganda. And I had said this on broadcast that it made me very suspicious because he was pressuring for a two-state solution, but that turned out to be false. So I since then have apologized for that. But even if so, it's interesting, you know, what was Charles's purpose of?
How come no one's talking about the red heifer they sacrificed in the last couple of days? All these guys aren't talking about that.
Pinning him.
Keep your enemies close. Keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer.
That's better.
President Trump has been against the agenda of the globalists. He's more of a technocrat. And the technocrats, and so is Elon Musk, by the way. Elon Musk's own father was for technocracy.
He had back, mate.
And part of that is taking Greenland and not just the Panama Canal, but Greenland and Canada into the United States as a corporate national entity in a manner of speaking. So you've had Trump saying, wouldn't it be great to have Canada as the 51st state? And we need Greenland for our security. Both good arguments. You know, the United States has been providing the security to Canada, and they've been, basically getting a free ride all this time. And Greenland is necessary at this point, given how easy it is to quickly cross, oceans and so forth with modern technology. We need it. to monitor airspace, to monitor what's
Yeah, Greenland's like a great big aircraft carrier, isn't it?
happening
That's why
on
Trump
the
wants
continental
it.
shelf, etc., in case China or Russia wanted to make a surprise attack, for example. So the arguments are not wrong or poor, that Trump is making, but they are historically technocratic. They didn't start with Trump. They go back, many decades, in fact. This idea of bringing Greenland and Canada into a corporate entity with the United States for national boundaries and security and so forth. But it's also part of this idea of bringing about a global governance. And when we talk about President Trump, though he's against the agendas of the British monarchy, he says he loves King Charles III, right? Did you know that President Trump's mother, I believe it is, was a British citizen?
I did not know that.
Nor did I.
Yeah. And she loved the monarchy.
What I find interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, but anyway, he's acquired that. So now he's got his second invitation to go see Charles at Buckingham Palace. And, right after that, Charles hosted Zelensky because the United Kingdom, under the British monarchy, has always hated Russia. Since Russia in the communist revolution, the Bolshevik revolution, killed a portion of the family basically closely related to the
Basically cousins to the British family.
British monarchy, which was their own monarchy there in Russia. And yet, historically, it's the fault of the British monarchy that they died. The Bolsheviks allowed the British monarchy an opportunity, and I'm talking in this case, Elizabeth II and her father, an opportunity to bring them from Russia rather than kill them.
Hey, Phil, good to see you,
Just
mate.
remove them from Russia. Well, they thought, let's let them die. Less competition for the throne. In time, right?
Yeah.
But we're going to go after Russia forever because of the fact that they killed our relatives. It's kind of that attitude. And so Russia is always the boogeyman, for the United Kingdom and now for the European Union. Under the United Kingdom, by the way, the European Union came out of the European Economic Community, right? Which came out of what? Nazi Germany, in reality. The embers, if you will, of Nazi Germany at the end of World War II. So you can arguably, and many people have made this argument, it's valid, that the EEC was meant to be the Fourth Reich.
Oh, absolutely.
And so when you have the EU that's come out of that, they're becoming more and more totalitarian. And you look at modern Germany, and J.D. Vance, much earlier this year, basically saying, Germany, by the way, you guys don't seem to share our values anymore. You're very, very censoring. You're a lot like the Biden administration, just the German version of it, right?
Right.
And by the way, you don't seem to share our values much anymore either. Most of you folks are part of the bloc who comprise the European Union. Maybe we shouldn't, go all in on NATO anymore, because maybe you guys will trigger a war with Russia. You guys or England, and maybe it won't be Russia's fault. Because NATO's done nothing but violate its pledges to Russia the entire time in terms of creeping up on Russia's borders.
Oh, man. I personally am under the opinion that Putin has shown incredible restraint over and over and over again. And I believe it's because he won't play ball to their policy. So they want a regime change, and they've made that clear. So,
yeah,
it's interesting.
And people have been talking, almost from the beginning of the Ukrainian war about the Azov Battalion, which is an actual Nazi battalion, part of the Ukrainian military. They come literally and directly from the Third Reich. They were the Third Reich in Ukraine prior to the end of World War II. That's what they were. Yeah. They're the descendants of surviving Nazis who, to this point in time, have had their own battalion in Ukraine. And the public, anybody who would point that out toward the beginning of that war under the Biden coup regime, and I call them a coup regime, because they were empowered to have this coup against Trump. And let's come back to that in Charles here in a moment. But people were being censored on YouTube who were pointing that out, right? They were, and on social media. And now it's being admitted in the mainstream press. Oh, yeah, the Azov Battalion. Yeah, they really are Nazis.
Well, Putin openly said that at the beginning of that campaign, that we are going in for the Nazis. He started that as his explanation.
Yeah, and so meanwhile, while they're trying to censor the truth here in the U.S. under the Biden regime, they're becoming a Nazi themselves in their conduct, just like the European Union still is. They don't have a Trump-like figure, over the EU right now. They've got a couple of people who are standing against the grain, like Viktor Orban, for example, and more people tending toward conservatism within the EU, but they seem to be getting knocked out of their respective nations' leadership competitions, through election thefts across the EU, one after another. So all this is to say, when Vance was calling NATO into question, I wrote in 2018, and I started this book in 2007, this one that was published in 2018, North Korea, Iran, and the Coming World War. The NATO is going to break up, and Germany and Turkey are both going to be out of NATO and aligned with Russia and Iran and so forth. And that's exactly where we're heading.
Well, that's biblical.
Yeah. So that's where we're headed.
Yeah. What's really interesting is that I'm sure you followed what was said about the Epstein files with our president. And he retracted a statement that he made. He said that there was no client list, and that was very suspicious for many people. But I dug deeper on that and found out why, and it's really interesting. Pam Bondi a few months ago said that she had the client list on her desk, and they were going to release them soon. And now they've released a statement that that client list doesn't exist anymore. But it turns out that that client list is so extensive. It has almost every major politician in the world connected to it, almost every technocrat, almost every CEO, every mogul, Hollywood. The intel that I got is that if this list...
Well, they got Prince Andrew with it, so politicians aren't out of the question.
...was to be released, it would completely collapse globally because there would be so much backlash. It's so big. The hole is so deep.
Which means judgment's coming quicker, hopefully.
That he's really got his back up against a wall. I don't think he...
Yeah, it's more than that, actually. And so in this book, I talked about Jimmy Savile, the most infamous pedophile in the history of the
Sir Jimmy
publicly
Savile.
known anyway, maybe in the history of the world. He's a close friend of Charles before his death.
Yeah.
The whole global pedophile network, a big chunk of it is literally sitting under the British monarchy and has for centuries.
Luciferian.
Well, not just that, but sexual slavery and sex trafficking and all that. Under the British Empire, now the British monarchy, the British Commonwealth, a lot of that has been tied under the crown historically. Now, when you have President Trump embracing Charles, where he says he's a great guy, where he says if the United States is invited to join the Commonwealth, he would consider it. And he has said these things publicly in the last few months, right?
Right.
I sent a letter and a copy of this book through multiple avenues to President Trump and other members of his administration. I've had no response. With the letter to President Trump, I said, oh, by the way, it's Charles who was...
Die, so now they're bringing out the bubonic plague. Honestly, what hope have the public got? They just, oh man, it's terrible.
Behind every effort to unseat you and prevent you from being in power before 2016, and then to overthrow your government and to have you impeached up until the present day. Like the Steele dossier, right?
Right.
People look at John Brennan, who, by the way, is a Muslim. They look at these other individuals, but what they forget is the Steele dossier was sourced out of London, and British intelligence under Charles was involved in it. And actually, there's a lot more to it. A lot of the censorship and the efforts against Trump came out of London. A lot of the news media censorship comes out of London for the European Union and the United States.
Yeah.
And so, There are so many avenues by which the British monarchy has sought to control the United States, and Trump was a wild card. But he's in office anyway, right? Got in anyway.
Right. Yeah.
And he is, I presume, from naivete, unless he's of the same axiom, keep your friends close, your enemies closer, and embracing Charles from that perspective. But I don't get that impression. I think he just doesn't get it.
Really?
Yeah. And whether the United States continues to be under Trump or not, it will end up going into the global governance under Charles as the Antichrist. And it will end up coming against Israel, which is not what we see so far, in reality from Trump in relation to Israel. Apart from these fake news releases where they're trying to prod him to say this or say that or take this or that approach, that's contrary to what he seems to be doing and actually is doing behind the scenes. So we'll have to see how it works out. But, the one thing I have noted in relation to Trump and Israel and Netanyahu is that President Trump did come out publicly and he was willing to throw the nation of Israel, the alliance, under the bus over the trial against Netanyahu. He basically told Israel recently, the court system, stop this kangaroo trial, this kangaroo court against Netanyahu, who just won this great victory for Israel in conjunction with the United States against Iran. Stop it.
He can relate.
Or we'll withdraw our aid, to Israel, etc. I mean, it's basically throwing Israel under the bus.
Yeah.
It's that kind of threat. And he just did the same thing with Brazil. We're going to give you 50% this week. We'll give you 50% tariffs if you keep going after Bolsonaro. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but the former president of Brazil, who's likewise similarly being persecuted for being a conservative. In the case of Netanyahu, the globalists want him out of power because he's not willing to actually go for their two-state so-called solution, meaning the death of Israel as a nation.
Well, I mean, we would see unspeakable devastation in the world the moment they sign the dotted line for that.
Well, the shocking thing to me was Trump's willingness to throw Israel under the bus over Netanyahu. I mean, I don't know that he would do that, but he certainly made the threat. And when you think about that, that means it's possible that even President Trump would turn against Israel in a big way. It could happen.
He has, it appears to be a good poker face, because look how he handled China regarding the tariffs.
Well, it's not over.
Yeah.
China's feet are being held to the fire, so to speak, in terms of turning over rare earths and so forth. They were supposed to do that previously. They didn't. So we'll see what they do. You got to believe what nations do, just like what you have to believe what people do rather than what they say.
Right. So regarding the tribulation week, I'd be interested to hear your perspective. Is you understand that I believe October 2nd into September was that time period, but I'm open to whatever. That's just what I feel led to. And I know that you're looking for certain things.
So we're talking last year, right?
Yeah.
2024, when you mentioned those months.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been open to that possibility.
Yeah.
But there is something, a big piece that is missing for me biblically.
And that is?
So when we talk about the covenant of Daniel 9:27, the treaty that essentially initiates that 7-year period leading to Armageddon,
mm-hmm.
That covenant that is quote unquote confirmed in many English translations, throughout that 7-year time frame, 7 years in context. The scripture does not mean confirm. It means to impose or to enforce. Literally, it means to make strong or strengthen. That's the literal meaning of the Hebrew Gabor. So the inference is it's going to be imposed or enforced. We know that Israel is not going to agree to what the world is demanding, which is division of Jerusalem, giving up half the city, and not just any half of the modern city, so to speak, which encompasses the old city of David that has the Temple Mount and all the modern additions around it, right, for the last century plus. So the world since 1967 has demanded that Israel cede the half that contains the Temple Mount that Israel captured in 1967, right?
Right.
You have UN Security Council resolutions demanding that of Israel, etc., from that point to this day. And Israel is not going to agree to that. We know biblically Israel will not agree to that because half the city will be taken by force from Israel, through Zechariah 12-14. The whole city will be encircled, and half the city will be taken by force in war against Israel. Right?
Right.
Given by Israel willingly. So we're talking about a scenario not where it's a peace treaty, where Israel signs on the dotted line.
No, I get it now. That changes everything.
One, we're at peace. The world has peace. The Greek by Jerusalem or whatever the world's demanding. It's not that kind of scenario. The scenario is the world makes these demands of Israel. Israel refuses, and then the world imposes it. And for 3.5 years, the world fails at the imposition to one degree or another.
Wow.
And at the midpoint of the 7 years, successfully attacks Israel and takes after Jerusalem. But
Diane, these nursing homes and that, they're all winding their businesses up because they know what's coming. There's a lot of things happening.
Force and war. So what's missing is in September of last year, right about the same time, very close to the time when, within days of when the United Nations passed UN 2.0 and agreed to the expansion of the UN Security Council in the future without giving the details on what that expansion would look like, just saying, yeah, we're going to expand it. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. The world agreed to that, including the United States, but they didn't define the terms, so to speak. Will it be 10 members and 5 new ones? They didn't say any of that last year. But about the time that they did this thing, UN 2.0, the General Assembly of the United Nations passed a resolution demanding that Israel cede Eastern Jerusalem and go back to the 67.
Yeah, Diane, I've never seen all these sort of businesses shutting down like they do. Every day or every week at least, some big food deliverer from your place gets destroyed or nursing homes collapse. They're winding their businesses up for the end, I reckon.
Orders have not even orders within 12 months. They gave Israel 12 months to do so. Now, the General Assembly has no teeth. They can't enforce anything. It's like the world saying, we want this. Yeah, we all agree. And Israel will just say, so what? You guys are idiots. Your buyers, your servants, the devil. So what? Right?
Right.
But the General Assembly, of course, knows this. And so they went to the Security Council and said, Security Council, we want you to pass a resolution like this one that we just passed and enforce it. Put teeth to it. That's what has not happened.
Mm.
The United States didn't agree to that under Biden, thankfully. And the Trump administration has not agreed to that so far, nothing like that. Now, does it mean that it couldn't be the General Assembly resolution from last year and that, Israel gets attacked 3.5 years, later, after September of last year, in other words, the end of September, early October, that time frame?
Right.
Could that happen? They take after Jerusalem by force, less than 3.5 years from now? Yeah, that could happen. Here are the problems. The beginning of the tribulation week has more to it than just the covenant. One is that the rider of the white horse, whomever that is, goes forth victorious and to be victorious. A lot of English translations say conquering and to conquer. The Greek text means victorious and to be victorious. And it talks about the rider being given a crown, and it isn't a king's crown. That's a mistake that a lot of people make, and it isn't corona either. A lot of people were trying to associate coronavirus. Basically, the scripture twist. People who are novices, who don't understand that the English is translated from the original Greek, the English isn't the inspired text. It's a translation of the Greek, which is the inspired text, the original autograph, in other words, the original scripture. Right. So they don't go and look at the Greek and they just see the word crown. Oh, crown, king's crown, that's what they think. Or corona, crown, right? Maybe they think it's a beard. I don't know. But if you go and look at the Greek text, it's Stephanos. And Stephanos is a victor's crown, like the wreath that was given in the Greek or Roman games to the victor of the games. So it's not a presidential crown necessarily. It could be like a Nobel Peace Prize kind of a crown. Could be a victor's crown in a war, right? Well, I have pointed out in a number of interviews and quite a few times that really since roughly that same time frame, September, October last year, and you could go back if you wanted to October 2023, when Israel decided to respond to, Hamas's satanic genocidal attack against the nation and go for a victorious war against Gaza. You could go back and say, yeah, they're talking about victory back then, that kind of thing. But really, since around the September, October timeframe last year, you've had victory this, victory that constantly.
Yes.
In the news, in relation to what Israel did to Hezbollah, for example, in Lebanon, what Israel has done against Hamas, what Israel has now done in conjunction with the United States against Iran, Israel defending itself against multiple ballistic missile attacks from Iran, at least 3 now.
Right.
And then, of course, all sorts of attacks from the Houthis, sending ballistic missiles provided by Iran, or that they're now engineering with technology provided by Iran.
Yeah.
But victory, the word victory is just plastered everywhere in relation to these things, like I've never seen before. And by the way, when you mentioned thinking Trump would go for a 2-state solution or this kind of thing, I have the advantage of having followed these things closely for decades from the beginning, and basically from almost the beginning of Netanyahu's career. And read Israeli news, the major news of Israel, for decades. Most days, most weeks, of more than 30 years now. Going back actually to about 1988. I've read just about everything. So I understand these characters quite well, better than most, and better than most politicians on the planet. And I knew that Trump was not talking about dividing the land of Israel, at least not so far, not trying to force that up. I knew that that was fake news. But when we get down to it, could Trump be part of imposing a so-called 2-state solution on Israel? Well, yeah, if he turns his back on Israel, because of Netanyahu or for some other reason. Or could Trump be assassinated by Iran or some other, unsavory entity, and be replaced by someone who would turn the United States against Israel? Yes. I mean, in today's world, anything can happen, right? We don't know the details of how things will work out, but we know that they will work out biblically. And what God has said will come to pass. We do know that Charles is the Antichrist, because that has been proven. And folks, anyone who claims otherwise is ignorant.
Yep, that's true.
They're just ignorant. And if they say thus,
he is pretty convincing with King Charles. In fact, he sold me. I believe that King Charles is the Antichrist. I believe him.
With the Lord, then they've crossed the line of ignorance into being false teachers or false prophets.
Right.
So you have to be clear about that. But at any rate, coming back to your point, we need to see something tantamount to that crown with Trump. I don't think his election as president necessarily qualifies for that, but it could. We need to see the white horse, that symbolism associated with Trump. Now, that piece is missing for me with him to this point. It was present actually with Obama and Biden, and I've talked about that before. And Obama was behind the Biden regime. Could they come back into the fore, or someone under Obama come back into the presidency? Maybe. We'll see. Could a white horse end up being associated with Trump later? Maybe. We'll see. People are talking about Trump wanting to give him the Nobel Peace Prize.
I heard that.
Yeah, there was some talk about that previously when he was talking with North Korea. And I documented that in my book, North Korea and the Coming World War, back in his first administration.
Right.
Now there's a lot of talk coming out of Israel and some of these African nations and some others around the world saying, Trump is a peacemaker. He should have the Nobel Peace Prize. Right? All the things he's already done. There's a lot of talk about that right now. Will it happen? I don't know. So the point is, the jury is out on who the rider of the white horse is. But Charles is the 4th horseman of the apocalypse. He is the ultimate Antichrist over all the others, and he's riding the entire time, preceding and then with the other 3 horsemen. The rider of the white horse, the rider of the fiery red horse, the rider of the so-called black horse in Revelation, the 3rd seal, which is really not black biblically, and I address that in some of my other material, but it's more like the color of Lucifer at Denver International Airport. That's the real coloration of that horse.
Right.
Cerulean blue with reddish pink fiery highlights and gray highlights. That's the actual color of that horse biblically. So if we see World War III start in the September to October timeframe, meaning the events of the 2nd seal of the apocalypse, it's roughly a seal per year. If we see that happen this year, Chris, meaning between now and October, maybe November, that time frame,
Well, that means one seal's been broken, and if we got one to come.
That would mean that we're in the events of the second year of the tribulation week when World War III breaks out. It'll be North Korea that triggers it. It's the rider of the fiery red horse that triggers it, that takes peace from the earth per Revelation chapter 6, verses 3 to 4. And as I document and show in this book, that fiery red horse is the national symbol of North Korea. And it is a symbol after which they have named a lot of their armaments historically. And it overlooks downtown Pyongyang. The statue does, the actual fiery red horse, and it comes out of Asian mythology. So it is North Korea that will trigger World War III, and it's not coincidental, or anything like that, that North Korea is now providing troops to Russia, that they're working together. The rider of that horse is given a great sword, when he takes peace from the earth. Now, I was thinking Sword of Islam when I wrote this book, and I was thinking of Mother Russia's statue and the giant sword on that statue that Russia has.
Mm-hmm.
So this book covers China and Russia, besides North Korea and Iran and Saudi Arabia and the United States. That fiery red horse is also associated with ExxonMobil. Through Mobil Oil and then Magnolia Oil prior to that, it's the Pegasus that's on those gas pumps from our younger days, and now still associated with ExxonMobil. So it's the same fiery red horse of Asian mythology associated with some of U.S. oil, in this case specifically ExxonMobil. So it's associated with energy systems in that sense, oil and gas. And then most literally with North Korea. So I'm expecting these things to come to the fore and trigger World War III. So World War III will be triggered around North Korea, energy, etc., China, Russia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, the United States will all be involved. And then other actors. I talk about India and Pakistan and what would happen if there was a nuclear exchange between them. But World War III will be intense and it will be shorter than World Wars I and II. And out of it will come global famine, the events of the Third Seal. After that, the events of the Fourth Seal and the Constitution of the Global Government, finally. The mortal wound of recovery on Charles' part, where he's possessed by the devil. So that's a long-winded way of saying maybe you're right. If you are, and I've been saying this too, maybe it started with that General Assembly resolution in September last year. Maybe we're in the first year of the tribulation week already. But if that's true,
Diane, it come down as blue rain, didn't it?
Then we'll see World War III start this year. But for me, I'm not convinced it's true because I don't see that crown element yet with the rider of the white horse. I don't see the white horse associated with Trump or anybody other than Obama and Biden so far, in an explicit way. And I have a book coming on the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse where I address that white horse. Now, I said Charles is the fourth horseman. This unicorn is that fourth horse. It's pale green, gray, or ashen, the color of rotting human flesh. In CMYK colors, it's not white and it's not gray. He's the fourth horseman, and those horses in Revelation 6, unicorn, Pegasus, and normal horse all fit the meaning of that Greek word horse. Can be any of those three things. Okay?
Right.
So this being said, it's actually a unicorn with human eyes. In the case of the fourth horseman, Charles is that fourth horseman, and that's his horse. That unicorn right there.
It matches his coat of arms too.
Yeah, the little horn, the eyes of the man in Daniel chapter 7. That unicorn has human eyes. And Charles actually calls it his little horn. And I've mentioned this.
Wow.
Do you know what our Secret Service calls Charles when he visits the United States?
I don't.
Their code word? Go ahead. Unicorn.
No.
Yeah,
Wow.
That's his official code. That's his code name in the United States by our Secret Service. Yep. He's also known, by the way, as the Red Dragon. When he flew helicopters and so forth, the RAF and the Royal Navy, Minesweeper that he commanded, he flew choppers, and he wore a normal green jumpsuit, but with a Red Dragon patch on his shoulder, and they call him, his call sign, Red Dragon, which is a symbol of Satan, of look like.
So one thing that I found interesting that does support the idea of World War III starting in fall is the blood moon on Purim this year, which is historically very concerning for folks that don't want that to happen. Just because if you understand, if you go back into history, almost every major conflict, including the destruction of the temple in 70 AD, are connected to blood moons, which is so. Time will tell. Time will tell.
Well, it will. You know, if we don't see World War III start this year, then that would mean we're not in the tribulation week yet. That would mean we're looking for something more overt than what I've described, you know, where victory is plastered everywhere, the word victory. And, you know, we do see victorious, you know, from one conflict to another. I mean, it does seem to be a chain of events that's traceable, right?
Yeah.
Particularly since, you know, Israel trounced Hezbollah with the pager operation.
Oh,
that was brilliant.
I mean, we've seen some things for the
That
books,
was brilliant.
Their books
That
in the last
pager
several
thing.
months, you know, that are just of biblical proportions, right? People will be talking about these until the new heavens and the earth. They just will in the history books. So, but does that mean that it's the start of the 7 years? I don't know that yet.
Right.
So I will see if World War III comes this year. I think that it's possible that it won't, that we haven't started the tribulation week yet because of the things that I say I'm not seeing yet, the missing elements for me. And I'm always looking for 100% of this stuff to be there before I say this is it, right?
Right.
So like with Charles, by the way, folks, I didn't figure this out. I didn't figure out that Charles is the Antichrist. I asked God to show me in 1987 who and what was being spoken of in Revelation 13, and he did. And that's how I have known since within a month of asking God to show me, I have known who the Antichrist is. I've never guessed. I never surmised. I knew nothing about the monarchy and less about history because I couldn't care less. I could not have cared less about history.
Right.
To that point in my life when God showed me. Yeah, these are supernatural things God did in my life to show me and lead me to the evidence and teach me, you know, a step at a time, rapidly, but still a step at a time. So I've known, and I've been publicly since 1987, Charles is it. And the entire time I've been mocked. And the argument has gone from strength to strength. You know, some things that happened after 1987, and I was saying he's it, right? The statue to Charles, early 2000s, right there in the back of the book. See that? I show that. My camera is playing games on me here, but that's why green screen will be good someday. But anyway, this statue is, excuse me, over here, wherever my finger is. Anyway, that statue right here, that's the actual idol that's going to go on the Temple Mount, and it exists. It's got Charles' fate. Now, that was created in the early 2000s, years after the first edition of my book was published.
Yeah.
But he became king, and what? That portrait to Charles, everybody's saying, what, is he the ruler of hell?
Good grief.
After the first edition, the second edition, pardon me. After this edition came out, that portrait was unveiled, right?
Yeah.
And then we got the Terra Carta and Astra Carta, where Charles himself is essentially asserting authority over the earth, Terra Carta, and over the universe, Astra Carta, which is exactly what the devil has wanted to do since he rebelled against God, right? So for whom is Charles asserting that authority? Under himself.
Yeah.
Right?
I tell you.
I hope Trump locks them up, all these governors that are assisting the illegal immigrants.
Go ahead.
The clincher for me, what sent me down that rabbit hole was the 2023 Commonwealth Games. And that's when I discovered your book, because as you're aware, that was good grief. Was it just blatant? And you're right. You could go on and on and on. Folks, if you have not read his book, The Antichrist and the Cup of Tea, it is extensive, it is thorough, and it's very detailed. And once you do read it, you'll see the reason why the confidence is such. Because there's nothing else once you understand the prophetic check marks that are checked. And it becomes,
Well, and Charles is actually running the world behind the scenes. He has been since 1969. And people say, how can that be? I see no evidence of that. But it's laid out in detail in this book. Now, I mentioned the World Economic Forum and the United Nations, right? People listening to this program for the first time, they never heard any of that.
Right.
But it goes way past that. So, like the whole green agenda globally is under Charles.
Yeah.
Always has been. And before that, it was largely under Prince Philip's father. And before that, it was always under the British monarchy. It goes back to the British Fauna and Flora Protection Society of the late 1800s. The whole modern environmental movement globally began with the British monarchy. A lot of people don't know that. So the World Wildlife Fund, its various branches, the World Resources Institute, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, all of that goes back to the British Fauna and Flora Protection Society. It's all under Charles.
Yeah.
Always has been. The whole green agenda is a scam to enable global taxation, to enable global governance under the British monarchy. You know, it's totalitarian control ultimately.
Look at what Charles is doing with England as we speak. Look at what they have done. Good grief. It's almost an Islamic country now.
Well, you know, this is another thing. People say, well, you know, Charles, nobody will follow him. Nobody in Israel cares about him, right?
Wrong.
What they don't understand, there are many things they don't understand. Folks, forgive me if I'm talking to the third person about you, and maybe you don't understand. That's why you need to get my book, right?
Right.
So in this book, I not only give the name calculation, besides, you know, going into all this imagery and his actual activities, you know, globally around the world. But let me see if I can show the name calculation here for a moment.
I got the book on my shelf.
Oh, silly me. I have it bookmarked with a piece of paper. I could have just opened right to it. There it is.
Yeah.
That's a name calculation. And it's not contrived. So scripture, sorry, I might do something about that camera one of these days. I've got it set up. But anyway, you'll have to get the book to
It's worth
it's terrible what I'm trying to do here. But anyway,
I love the lineage chart that came with it.
Yeah. So anyway, the name calculation is there, but then there's the lineage. And it shows his official descent from King David. That's the official claim of the British monarchy. When he was crowned, you know, King of England and the Commonwealth in 2023, he was officially crowned King of England. And King of Israel. And a lot of people have no idea. It's an official claim of the British monarchy that they sit on David's throne. His mother made that claim. She was crowned Queen of thy people Israel, quote unquote. And this is on the official lineage chart of Queen Elizabeth II, published in London in the early 1900s. So all this is to say, they claim to be Israel's monarchy at the same time, and they are actually descendants of the tribe of Dan of Israel. So they are actually Danites. And that's prophetically significant because the
Guys, with his underwriting,
church held that the Antichrist is
with his underwriting asking for donations, the number he gives is 404 and a few other numbers. Is it the 404 they sign so they're towing the line, or is that the 401 where the churches where the government makes the churches? Yeah, do you know what I mean? I wonder if that's what's happening.
be a descendant of the tribe of Dan due to the prophecy concerning Dan in Genesis, where Dan would be a serpent, by the way, who would strike the horse's hoof. So his rider would go backward, right? And then Jacob said, I've waited for your salvation, Lord. Well, that word serpent in Genesis there is actually fiery red dragon. You can literally translate it that way. And it's saying Dan will be the devil, by the way. And when Jacob says, I've waited for your salvation, Lord, I've waited for your Yeshua, your Jesus, Lord. The Hebrew there is Yeshua. The word salvation is Yeshua. It's the same as the name of Jesus in Hebrew. So Dan is likened to the devil, striking the horse's hoof. You know, that prophecy in Genesis 3:15, the proto-evangelion. And out of that striking of the horse's hoof comes Yeshua, riding to the rescue in a manner of speaking, ultimately, right?
Right.
So because of that prophecy, the early church thought, oh, is this indicating that the Antichrist, this false Messiah down the road, will be a descendant of Dan? So that the tribe of Dan fulfills this prophecy, right? As it turns out, the British monarchy are Danites. But apart from that, you mentioned Islam. Charles is a Muslim, and a lot of people don't know that. That was documented even in the first edition of the Antichrist Capti in the 1998 first edition. That was documented. Here's another thing that happened after that edition came out. Charles received an honorary doctorate in Islamic studies in 2008 in Cairo, Egypt, from the most prominent seat of Sunni Islamic learning in the world.
Yeah.
Another thing that happened more recently, he learned Arabic. He now speaks Arabic.
Wow.
His conversion to Islam in the 1990s was under one of the most prominent Sunni Muslims in the world, one of their guardians. Those are the chief clerics, if you will, of Sunni Islam. Under a guardian of Sunni Islam. So Charles is factually a Muslim, and Muslims in the Middle East, they know it. Yeah, and in the United Kingdom, they know it. It's only we here in the West who aren't paying much attention, who are still in the dark about it. And at the same time, somehow now over what? The Church of England? Anglican Protestantism? Appointing the Archbishop of Canterbury, who for decades have been heretics and apostates. And now openly support the sexually satanic LGBTQIA plus whatever lunatic movement, which I simply refer to as sexual Satanism, right?
Yeah.
This is all under Charles. How can a quote unquote Protestant church embrace these archbishops or embrace Charles? How can they not know that there's a problem, right? And the evidence that's been out since 1998 in the first edition of this book, and this is a massive update, the 2024 second edition. So this is the one you want to get, folks. If you haven't read it, it's available from Prophecy House. But anyway, there's so much happening in the world now. And so I have many books coming to that are out. I showed them here. Many coming in quick succession that I've worked on literally for decades. Most of them for more than a decade each. And we'll talk about those as they come out and just as we get questions and so forth. But I think that we could see World War III this year. But I also think maybe we're not in the tribulation week yet. The one thing I know with certainty is that it comes under the second seal of the apocalypse, when peace gets taken from the earth, that the fiery red horse is associated with that, and therefore North Korea is associated with that, and that it's roughly a seal per year, meaning we're talking the second year of the tribulation week when World War III does finally erupt. And all these people who are saying out there now that we're already in World War III, well, no, we're not. Biblically, we're not.
No.
Most of the world is still at peace.
Yeah.
What we see today is wars and rumors of war, right?
Birth pangs.
Desperate wars, rumors of war. Yeah, the beginnings of birth pangs. It'll get much worse than what we're seeing. And it'll happen very quickly, just like when birth pangs come on. But the Great Tribulation is after World War III and after global famine, which also is after World War III. So we can talk about that more in other segments, but I don't know that we're in the tribulation week yet, but I'm not ruling it out yet.
Okay, so I gather he's not a pre-tribber.
Either. We'll see what happens later this year.
Time will tell. Well, this was a great start for this series. Would you like to open up for questions to see if anybody would like to ask any questions?
Sure. Ooh. Anything anybody wants to ask.
Are you able to see the chat?
No. Maybe there's a button here that I can push to see it. Yes, I can see it. I do see it.
Well, the reason I said that, I was going to go grab your book. I have it in the other room. So, guys, if you have questions for Tim, I know many of you have questions. You guys have been asking me questions about this for ages. Some I have the answers to, some I don't. So this is a great opportunity.
Go grab the book and I'll see if I can answer a couple of questions that show up here.
All right. Let me go. Yeah, I'd love to. Be right back.
And you can show without flickering all over the place like me.
I want to show them the lineage chart. That is
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
See that. And by the way, folks, when he shows you that, the chart is available with the book from Prophecy Ash. You can actually get the chart also. Okay, and it's available separately now too, if you just want the chart. Anyway, all right, folks, if you got questions, throw them up quickly so that they're all together, because I only see the last X number of comments and the rest are up higher. And questions, okay. All right, so the question, have many of those seals been opened years ago and we're just finding out after the fact, question mark? No. No, it's roughly a seal per year, and the 7 seals of the book of Revelation starting in chapter 6 summarize the 7 years of that week of Daniel 9:27. If we're in it at all, we're in the first year under the first seal, but I don't know that we're in it yet.
I don't think so.
No, at most we've seen the first seal up.
Yeah, I don't think we're in trib yet. We could be weeks away, but I don't think we're in tribulation yet.
And I'm not sure that's even happened yet. Okay. Who gave Charles the black left eye? What secret society is behind that?
Good question.
Re-ask that. I don't know what you mean by the black left eye.
Wow.
Okay.
I know about the Left Black Eye Club.
What should we be doing currently to prepare physically? Pray. Each of us is going to have a different answer for that. You know, when they came at the wedding and they were complaining that there was no wine to Mary, Yeshua's mother, her response was, do whatever he tells you, do whatever Yeshua tells you, right? So my reply is very simple. Pray and ask God what you should do in your present circumstances, what you do to prepare for yourself, for your family, for others, for your church is not the same thing that your neighbor will do or other family members will do, or, it's dependent on your circumstance, how God has equipped you. So ask God to show you what you personally need to do. And not everyone is going to survive what's coming. There'll be plenty who die as Christians who end up being resurrected at Yeshua's return at the end of the tribulation week. But those who survive will be doing different things for themselves and for others. But the one thing you can't do is do evil, right? You got to serve God faithfully, whether you live or whether you die.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I haven't seen that photo about the black and left eye that you speak of concerning Charles. I assume you're speaking of him. Send me the photo at Prophecy House, and then we can address your question in the following program. We can show the program and address it. I don't know the answer to your question. All right, Charles and Camilla's son born out of wedlock. I don't know that there is a son of theirs born out of wedlock. There are plenty of rumors. There are lots of claims. Even I have had lots of emails over the years from multiple individuals, including out of the United Kingdom, claiming so-and-so is the real heir to the throne, or so-and-so is also Charles' son, or hidden away, and this kind of thing. I've seen no actual evidence for any of that. There are claims, but I haven't seen any credible claims on that to this point. And then likewise, there are people saying William and Harry aren't actually Charles' sons. So, for example, they'll claim William looks like one of Diana's lovers and claim that he's not actually Charles.
Yeah, but if you look at Harry's eyes, he's got little piggy eyes like the Queen had. So I believe he's definitely he's the bloodline grandchild of Queen Elizabeth, because he's got the same piggy little eyes.
So, but again, evidence for such claims, that you can verify is lacking. So I have no reason to believe those claims right now. And even if it were true, it wouldn't matter in terms of identifying Charles as the Antichrist or any of the things that we're discussing or that sort of stuff. None of that is impacted.
Good questions. There's lots of rumors.
Yeah, so Jesus moved when he wasn't going to. What does that teach us? What do you mean Jesus moved? Are you saying that he traveled the land of Israel preaching like so many evangelists do today, traveling around preaching? Ask your question in a way that I understand it better, please. Dome of the Rock, you know, that's a great question. End of the timeline, I thought it was done in 688 at 1335 years. So the Dome of the Rock does not fit in terms of biblical timeline or anything, other than to just call it a pagan temple that was constructed in the 5th millennium of history. So we're currently now nearing the end of the 6th day, the 6th millennium of the week of history from Adam and Eve. The Dome of the Rock was constructed in the 5th day, a pagan temple. What I would say about that is we can expect more paganism on the Temple Mount in the 5th year of the tribulation week on that basis. And of course, we will have that because the Great Tribulation will be in swing at that point. The idol of Charles will be on the Temple Mount already at that point, etc. But in terms of its location, Israel could construct a new holy place next to the Dome of the Rock. They could tear down the Dome of the Rock. It could be blown up by a missile from Iran or the Houthis or wherever, by some terrorist, by some bomb that somebody decides to use. It could be done by, you know, Orthodox Israelites who want to get rid of it. The temple can be built. We literally do not know. What we do know is that there will be a tribulation temple. There will be an idol to the Antichrist within its holy place. There will be sacrifice that is stopped at the midpoint of the week per Daniel 9:27. So around the time that the Great Tribulation starts, at the midpoint of the 7 years, the sacrifice and offering will be stopped in conjunction with that. So there'll be sacrifice and offering prior to that. And we know from Scripture that God will reject that sacrifice and offering because Yeshua, Jesus, is our sacrifice, the final sacrifice for sin, you know, our guilt offering. So those things we can say. Whether the Dome of the Rock will be there when that tribulation temple is present, that we don't know for sure yet. What I can add to this discussion is that there are people who are claiming that the Western Wall was not an outer wall of the Second Temple, but was instead something left over from the Antonia fortress that the Romans constructed next to the temple and used next to the temple with Herod and so forth. That is incorrect. Israel has correctly identified the location of the temple, and the Wailing Wall is in fact an outer western wall that had surrounded the temple complex, and the Dome of the Rock is in fact constructed where the temple ought to be. Yeah, right next to it or right over that spot. So the Antonia fortress was near that, but the Western Wall is not a remnant of that fortress. In fact, Israel's archaeologists have correctly identified the site. And by the way, I have a
Guys, I might switch it up now. They've sort of spoken all they can. Now they're just doing Q&As. So I'll go and do a Tony or a JW or whatever. What have I got? Okay, this one.
Information here with you live, citing all the sources. Something just ripped open the ocean floor with an earthquake style crack. This is coming from the University of Texas Institute for Geophysics. And we're going to go into all this information here with you live, citing all the sources. For the first time, scientists witnessed an undersea slope slip earthquake unzip. And we're going to get to all the different information and everything else coming out right now. But first, I'm going to show you just a clip of what Japan Meteorological Agency saw in Japan currently happening as we speak. So multiple floods hitting them big time. And the reason why we're showing that because
I got this from my grandpa and it almost gave him a heart attack. It's called the Jet Flux, and it's a German designed gadget that's supposed to turn any hose.
Texas Institute for Geophysics actually goes into where this rupture is at. It goes into warning zones. So you're going to want to see all that. Also, I have footage of what the U.S. military did And if you want to see that, let me know. Say yes in the chat right now. If not, I'll just break down the information we're going to. But this drill had to do with everything that was going to happen and what they're preparing for. I got the video of that as well from starsandstripes.com. So let me know yes. Say no if you don't want to see it. All right, let's go into this.
Mike from around the world was talking about ice and the ice melting yesterday. He said it's melting from the ground up. It's not melting from the top, and they don't know how to deal with it.
Institute for Geophysics in Texas scientists capture slow-mo
because underneath there's volcanoes heating the ice up.
Earthquake in action. Scientists for the first time have detected a slow slip earthquake in motion during the act of releasing tectonic pressure on a major fault zone at the bottom of the ocean. The slow earthquake was recorded spreading along the tsunami generating portion of the fault off the coast of Japan, behaving like a tectonic shock absorber. Researchers from University of Texas at Austin described the event as the slow unzipping of the fault between two of the Earth's tectonic plates. Now, this right now is what we're talking about. Japan has used something to wire the ocean with an earthquake sensing nervous system. And Japan's new earthquake detectors network lengthens warning times, and researchers in Wales have harnessed nuclear blast detectors to gauge tsunami risk. But the U.S. lags in monitoring the massive Cascadia megaburst. And this from scientificamerican.com. Going into even further scenarios, a lot of people say yes, they want to see that, what the military did, the U.S. military, because this has everything to do with every zone. Before we do that, specific area, we're going to give you the warning zones here in just a second. The areas they were speaking about is called Nakai-Tro megathrust. And this is connected to all the areas around the different regions from United States, Japan.
They are linking Trump to the list, aren't they, Diane?
Canada.
There might be some truth behind it.
All those areas are in the zones. Let's go into the zones and then we'll show you a little bit more of everything else. Let's go to the website. The last time Japan's Nakai fault produced significant earthquakes was 1946. The magnitude 8 earthquake destroyed 36,000 homes and killed over 1,300 people. Although another large earthquake expected in the future, the observations suggest the fault releases at least some of its pent-up energy harmlessly in regular reoccurring slow slip earthquakes. The location is also important because it shows that the part of the fault nearest to the surface releases tectonic pressure independently from the rest of the fault. So these are all the warning zones you're seeing right now. And if you can't see that good, this is released from the official website. We'll just show you the Ring of Fire, Australia, Asia, North America, South America. This is where all this is expected.
It doesn't touch Australia. I think we're the only continent on the planet that hasn't got live volcanoes. I'm pretty sure that's right.
And then recently you had Japan's military team up with drone industry for disaster response training. JUDA, which is basically a Japanese UAS Industrial Development Association. Japan UAS Industrial Development Association recently announced its collaboration with the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force during their Nakai rescue training drill. They did this drill with the U.S. military. A lot of people said, hey, show the clip. I'm going to go ahead and get ready to roll that clip for you. But first, we need to go ahead and read a little bit of this right here, what it said. They did this earlier in the year. U.S., this from starsandstripes.com, official military website. U.S.-Japan exercise built on response to the massive earthquake on Noto Peninsula. Now, I'm going to let you see the video clip so everybody here can see what they're actually specifically looking at and how they actually played this thing out, because I'm going to show you right after that how much cuts are happening. And people are exodusing. Right now, they're exodusing Japan. Here's some reports right here. Massive just water spewing out everywhere. The rainstorms are getting worse. It's not looking good as of right now. Officially, you can see right here inside the airports how it's looking. So it's caused a mass exodus. They said over 1,000 people have already left Japan. And these different navigations and migrations are going to continue to happen as we see more of this transpire. So I'm going to give you audio now and show you what the U.S.
I've watched a lot of videos on Japan getting hit with tsunamis. The power of these tsunamis It's unbelievable. What? Yeah, I like watching it because I can't believe the power of destruction in it.
Military did from starsandstripes.com. They did this training drill just earlier this year that you need to see right here.
We're all doing everything we can to get a great deal, like ordering home cleaning products in bulk. iSelect gets you great deals on health insurance to help beat this year's price rise, saving you time and space.
The future won't wait. It's there to be made. Tomorrow's solutions need your contribution. And if your calling is to shape more than the majority, then welcome to UTS's Information Technology.
Okay, here it is right here, starsandstripes.com. You can see them going along the coastline. U.S. and Japanese troops rehearsed their disaster response techniques a year after flying real-world missions for victims of a deadly earthquake. Two Black Hawk helicopters from U.S. Army Aviation Battalion, Japan, operate alongside Japan Ground Self-Defense Forces. Aircraft were part of Nakai Rescue, the U.S.-Japan disaster drill conducted. So this was the one that they're looking at. This is a specific area. Noto Peninsula collapsed buildings, shredded highways, killed hundreds of people in towns and villages. This is what the drill did. The Nakai rescue coincided with a magnitude 6.7 earthquake that struck Japan. This was the first original one happening. This is around the fault region of the seismic zones in the Pacific. The ring of fire it sits on. This is why it's a problem for all the regions. Battalion Black Hawk lifted Thursday from Camp Zama, headquarters of U.S. Army. Took the Tiger formation flight over the area with the U.S. and Japanese aircraft to mark the start. And so, yeah, this is basically they went and looked around the entire zone. They mapped it out. This was
I said we got volcanoes, but no active volcanoes.
footage from the U.S. Army, starsandstripes.com. Everything amps up right now. This is awareness to the situation, not fear, just being more aware of what's happening. Here's other things that's happening, though, at the same time that really shouldn't have happened. Before we get to that, though, let's show you what the cuts are going to be looking like. Japan eyes 80% cut in 298,000 deaths total from the potential megaquake in the Kaitro. So a lot of stuff right now is happening, a lot of different strategic movements. U.S. military not speaking much of what they're going to be doing. But let's read from Stars and Stripes. Or, matter of fact, let's read from University of Texas Geophysical Institute. And it says this. It says the borehole observation using Japan study were installed by the Integrated Ocean Drilling Program and funded by the U.S. National Science Foundation. Other data was supplied by the Ocean Floor Cable Observatories operated by Japan Agency for Marine Earth Science and Technology. Again, you can see down below that the source is cited. You can see there all the information on screen. Now, here's the important thing. You're new here, subscribe, because all throughout the week, we're continuously reporting on everything, all the updates, all the live situations. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. And all the new information that's coming out, we're going to be covering all of that stuff and what's going to be happening in these zones and what are going to be the preparations. We're going to go through all of that. Wells, and here's what I told you that is a big problem right now. And it's confirmed that it's happening. You know, nobody's talking about it. I don't understand why anybody's not talking about it, because now we get an idea of why they did these global drills. Fukushima switched back on after 14 years being off, and this is a major problem because if an earthquake hits, now the nuclear reactors have a problem. Now we're not just talking about a ring of fire issue, we're talking about a radioactive issue. And now, in my head, I want to ask you a question. Doesn't this seem like a good reason for the IAEA and WHO to do a nuclear reactor meltdown drill in the last few days? I'm asking y'all the question, doesn't that seem like it would be a good reason to do it? It doesn't, to me, it doesn't seem like we're waiting for something to launch. We're looking at earthquake scenarios right now, and that seems to be the scenario that could play out and cause major situations. Now, here in the Pacific, there's some strange stuff happening outside of that, where they found some like black-looking eggs, which is beyond me. Popular Mechanics came out and they actually showed these black eggs. It was very weird. And they're talking about that the University of Tokyo marine researchers went out there to go and retrieve these eggs. And at first they were like, what kind of eggs are these? I mean, like, starting a scary movie or something? That's what I was thinking. But it's just the eggs are ominous looking, pitch black in color, were found in the abyss zone. They call it the abyssopelagic, however you say that, but that's the abyss, which is one of the lowest regions of the ocean, basically, where they found these things. And so after that, what was in the egg? That's the question. What was inside the eggs? Kano sent the eggs to invertebrate biologists at Kaido University, who discovered that these were actually tiny cocoons hosting flatworms. So they're telling us it's just flatworms in there. And at the same time, the doomsday fish are rising to the surface. And somebody says nuclear eggs. Actually, when I looked at it, when the fish, not fish, but when parasites are in radiation, they actually thrived in there. There were studies and scientific reports coming out how worms thrive in those environments. So I don't think they're going to die. But we're going to have a lot more of this coming out. Reading more into the Stars and Stripes report, U.S. Army aviators and Japanese troops rehearsing their disaster response techniques year after they flew real-world missions of victims of deadly earthquake on Japan's western coast. We are not hearing anything else about NOAA right now, saying anything. So right now we're going to be looking for those updates. We're going to give you those updates. The big thing you can do right now is share this report out. And I did a report just the other day, U.S. radars are basically under attack in the United States. And I put that report, if you look down in the live.
Yeah, we watched that yesterday.
I really want a mechanical pencil.
A new notebook, text disk,
A laptop.
headphones, camera, and all that kind of stuff.
New term, new school supplies. Shop our everyday low prices at Office Works.
Try new Wonder 5-star best of both and 5-star soft wholemeal.
Say this first. Actually, this relates to it, by the way. We have some surprising stuff to cover, my friends. This is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. We got so many stories to get into. We have, of course, 2 predictions that just came true. You're not going to believe these, my friends. We're going to get into those 2. We have something, of course, going on in another country you're not going to believe. And it's in, of course, the Middle East. And it seems sort of strange, the timing. We'll get into that. We're also going to get into a ton of other stuff going on, some stuff out of Hollywood and much more. Let's just get into this. We're also going to get into, obviously, the big story with, the guy with the island, all that kind of stuff. Let me play this first. Actually, this relates to it, by the way. These 2 predictions that came true. This is from Troy Black. He made this prediction back in early June 2nd. And the picture on the thumbnail is so perfect, it's unbelievable. Let me show you this. I didn't even have the thumbnail open to show you. Look at this. A dark discovery is coming. You can see someone obviously looks like it could very well be our president, right? And God showed me a beloved leader falling. Oh, that's weird. Almost like what just happened, right? Check this out.
Under a spotlight for the world to see. And then I heard, watch and see what comes next, because it will be brutal to some and play on emotions for others. And he said, a friend who let you down. And then he said, you aren't going to like how this plays out, how it wraps up.
That sounds pretty much like what just happened. Said he's not going to release, of course, the list. And I think that is definitely a prediction that was fulfilled with that video. And what's so funny is even 6 days ago, Troy put out a video saying he had 5 predictions about a president just come true. And this is not even one of those. Okay, it's not even one of those. And here's another one that just came true. It came true literally within, how fast was this? Like a day or 2? God told me this will about next 7.5 days. God told me this is about to happen in the next 7.5 days. And it came out July 9th. It came out July 9th. This is going to happen in the next 7.5 days. And it's pretty much already guaranteed to happen. You'll see what I'm saying. This is what he said. All right, check this out.
Sure, but this is what I heard July 7th. The Lord said in 7 days. And then I heard what was July 7th? 2 days ago. I heard this 2 days ago. So in 7 days. So I don't know if it's 7 days from now, the Lord knowing I was going to share it today, or 7 days from 2 days ago, one or the other. An irresolute action by a wandering prince will excite much comment from the news media and surrounding factions. That's what I heard.
So when I heard that the first time, I was like, what does that even mean? What is that? And it's talking about a wandering prince and his irresolute actions. And I was like, what is this weird, what is this even referring to at all? I had no clue. But then this came out literally the next day after he made that video. Prince Andrew, free to travel abroad. A wandering prince. Oh, yeah, he wanders around. And he had some irresolute actions he did. Yeah, that might be the guy. I'm pretty sure it's referring to this dude right here. So, of course, I'm not trying to promote Troy Black, but the fact is he gets so many of these right. It's ridiculous. He's gotten over 100 of them right from what I could tell. He has a website where he actually documents them all. I mean, that's like 7 in the last 3 days that he got correct. 7 in the last 3 days. I mean, goodness gracious. And then we have this. Something going on, of course, over there in the Middle East, in a certain important city over there. Check this out. Apparently, maybe the third temple has already begun because they're already doing, well, let me just show you.
After years of waiting, a perfect red heifer has finally been selected.
Israel's biblical red heifer sacrifice ritual has come to life in a rehearsal ceremony. It took place today, July 8th, 2025.
Okay, so that's going on. Yeah, so they're already doing the rehearsal for it. Maybe we're getting kind of near the end. I don't know. You have also this just happened as well. I saw this weird video. Actually, I saw this over on I saw it over on the Scariest Movie Ever's channel, or his name's KJ, if you remember him.
Good night, Phil. God bless, mate.
What's Happened, I think is what he calls his channel now. Showed this, I didn't even know this happened. This was over, what was this, like end of April or in May or something? This happened in the same country. Check this out.
No, this was never supposed to happen, as biblical fires are burning our cities to the ground and our final days are among us. People were terrified after the fire in Jerusalem was not like any fire they had ever seen, being labeled as not only the biggest in history, burning almost 170 acres every hour, but burning things that normally do not burn, with even the Bible warning in.
So this is really interesting. He goes into the Bible and he shows that in that country, there's a passage saying that this will happen. And it says that it would go directly to the religious centers in that area. Check this out.
The corrupt religious centers, with haunting scenes showing the fire going straight to just religious monasteries and memorial sites.
No way!
What in the world? That's crazy. I didn't even know about that. That was like literally that was like 2 months ago. I had no clue that even happened. Apparently that's what happened. It was April 30th, apparently. In early May. I had no clue this even happened over there. So that's strange. You got these weird stories like this. And we're going to get into actually a ton more as we get into this video. We have, of course, updates on, the guy, of course, with the islands. We got some of that. We also have, strangely, lots of floods happening. You're not going to believe how many in America. We're going to get into that as well. And maybe I should have put that as I don't know. Maybe I did put that as the title. I don't know what I put as the title and image on this video. Anyway, before we do so, I got to mention Food Supply, 25-year shelf life. Link is in the description. 3 months worth for $4.97. You're going to definitely want to get that. If you have not already, link is in the description. That's the cheapest price they've ever had. You can't even hardly get 1 month's worth of food for $500 at Walmart right now, and you get 3 months there. This obviously is in case you can't get to the supermarket for whatever reason. Link is in the description. This book here, The Lost Ways, how your great-great-grandfather lived without electricity, had a bit of solar, do things around the house as they did in the good old days. Hundreds of pages illustrated. You're going to definitely need that book before the electricity goes out. Get the printed version. $37 plus shipping. We are up all over on our social media. Soon here, I'm going to be doing a giveaway, hitting over 500,000 subscribers on this channel here. Not bad. I thought I was going to do it a long, long time ago. And something kind of got in the way for about 7 years. You know, stuck in the wilderness for 7 years or something there. I don't know. To me, it was a test. It was a test, right? Now we're finally moving again. Hopefully we can get up to 1 million. That'd be pretty cool. At any rate, go check all the links out below. Let's get back to the video. So we have, of course, this little bit of a contradiction for Pam. Apparently, they're telling the courts they're still reviewing all the records for potential release, but then they said there was nothing to release when they told us to the public. So there's nothing to release. There's no list according to them when they talk to us, but when they talk to the court, well, we're still reviewing it. And this is from yesterday. Okay, wow, that's great. Speaking out of two sides of your mouth at the same time. Not really a good look. Not really a good look. I don't think that's, obviously no one believes any of this stuff. I bet you, like, if they took a poll, I bet you it'd be like 98% do not believe what they said. Literally. All across, anywhere you ask. I think anybody pretty much, anybody, you can.
Take a look inside the Haagen-Dazs Fruits Collection for delicious little cups made en France, fresh cream with ripe red strawberries. Et voila! It's the ice cream of ice creams.
I love ice cream.
I will score a try.
Hawaii starts with feeling like you're on vacation before your vacation.
Concrete, it hasn't changed for centuries, or has it? Start at the beginning. Bring in the...
Poll anybody in America, right? Apparently, Dan Bongino is feeling the heat, thinking of resigning after his clash with Pam over, of course, the files. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit of a fallout for these guys, just a wee bit. No one believes them at all. It's not working out too well for them. Now, there is some interesting things we've heard since the last time I made a video, because every day there's a new update. It is interesting. Some are saying that there's so many people, of course, involved that if they literally released it now, the entire structure of our country would fall apart. That sounds pretty ridiculous, but I actually, honestly, I could see that there might be a lot of powerful people, and there might be a lot of vacancies and a lot of things stopping and not working right. But again, it's been months. They've had plenty of time to sort of sort that out, I would assume. If it really is that many people, I mean, goodness. I remember hearing, that's right, there was this prediction from 5-6 years ago. Where was that at? Coverstone? You remember Dana, what's his name, Dana?
Yeah.
About that when this all comes out, literally Congress will be almost empty. My goodness, if that's the case, that's insane. That's insane. I remember that. I totally forgot about that prediction, man. I just remembered it just now. Maybe God told me about it, reminded me or something. I remember the prediction that pretty much no one was almost left. There's like a quarter of them left. Like, you see what I'm getting at? Like, if it really is that bad, like the entire GOV might not be able to function or something, or like, I don't know, man. That's pretty crazy. Think about it. What if it was like businesses, like major business? I don't know. You know, they even had scientists going. They had everybody going there. I mean, they had, what's his name? Stephen Hawking there, dude. Like, seriously, what? Like, everybody and anybody who wanted to be famous or was famous ended up going. Stephen Hawking was there. Like, why in the hell was he there? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what, they wanted to influence the science? You know, like, what was that about? I mean, if he's going there, you know, a lot of other people are going there. You know what I mean? Like, seriously. So, of course, I already talked about this like 3 days ago. I was like the first. I wasn't the first guy. This guy was the first guy. This dude was the first guy to talk about this on YouTube, from what I know, and also on X, pointing out the fact that the camera had nothing to do with the cell that was immediate to it, and everyone was confused for like 2 days on that. I was probably, I'm not going to say I was the second one. I was one of the close followers after that guy. talking about this, but eventually all the other guys caught on to it. But the fact is, I just, some people may still not know about it. I mean, it's really that ridiculous. I'm still seeing posts on X and YouTube with people still confused about the fact that cell right in the camera line is not his. There's still videos going up. How many days later, still confused about this? I'm like, really? Like, so I got to throw it out there because somebody might not know. All right. Then you got this here. Apparently, his bank account is still moving millions of dollars. I was looking into this, and the dude was gone in 2019.
Hey, how's that? Good to see ya.
There's I saw articles like from the media from like 2023 talking about this, like official media saying that there's still money being moved around. And this post here is in early 2024 saying there's still money moving around. As a matter of fact, it was way more than it used to be in there. I think it was like originally, yeah. So it was originally like a little over $500,000, and then it ends up being like 13 million later. And there's money still moving around everywhere. Like, bro, what in the world's going on here? Of course, some people say he's, still around.
Well, we know Epstein was a Mossad asset. We know that.
I don't know. Who knows? Is he like Elvis? I don't know, man. Who knows? You've got this guy, which I'm not saying this dude is what you would call trustworthy, not exactly the most clean, good guy in the world. Let's just put it that way. From what I understand, he's not at all. This Allen dude, of course, who was former lawyer to, we're talking Jeffrey. This guy apparently is saying there clearly is a list. And then he's saying that he's not on it. I agree with the first one. I don't know about the second one. Who knows, man? I don't know. Maybe he never went. Maybe he's smarter than the other people. I don't know. Who knows? But the fact is, of course, there's a lot of interesting commentary about this man himself, and lots of people saying a lot of things about him, that he is exactly the right type of. He's the kind of guy that would go there, based on a lot of things that surround him. Let's just put it that way. Well, for example, one example, a very simple example. Recently, he came out and said that we should lower, of course, the age, for consent. Just to give you an idea. I mean, obviously, that sounds kind of like a guy that might want to go there. You know what I mean? I don't know. So you got that. Point. Then you got this. So you remember the press secretary stopped wearing her cross, right? Some are saying it was in protest, meaning that she didn't agree with any of this stuff. Check this out.
And people are even wondering if our own press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, doesn't believe it. Because yesterday during the press conference where she had to answer questions about this topic, she didn't wear her signature cross. When she talks about tariffs, cross. Freeze on federal grants and loans, cross.
Yeah, she wears it all the time. Except for this one time. Well, we'll see if she starts wearing it again or not on other topics. But, of course, that's one take on that. And then you have, of course, this coming out. Cash, apparently his girlfriend, oh, my goodness. His girlfriend has some history. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, she used to be part of a certain defense force. You can read it there on the screen. Wow, that's no conflict of interest. Yeah, so apparently you got Dan there, Bongino, who apparently is also about promoting and defending that country. Then you got him being in a relationship with a girl who used to be part of that, country. It's not looking really good in that respect. Again, I don't think it's just that country, though. I just want to make that clear. I mentioned how on PBD, Patrick Bet-David's podcast the other day, he had a CIA, guy on pointing the finger at that country. And to me, what that tells me is, no, that means you guys are guilty too. And actually, that is the case. I'm thinking it's both of them 50-50. Our, of course, intelligence, theirs, we're all in on it. Obviously, pretty obviously, at least to me. Now, I don't think our president was in on it. I went through how he stopped being friends with this guy. He was friends with this guy before he found out about, of course, the island. Okay? And the reason why you know that...
Diane, they used to go on about Donald Trump, whether he's wearing a red tie or a blue tie. Like if he was wearing a red tie, he was telling lies. And people look for anything, won't they?
I played a tape, actually, an audio tape showing this, that he was interviewed by a guy named Wolf or something some years ago. We're talking Jeffrey was, interviewed, and he said that he was good friends with him for 10 years. And then the friendship ended in early 2000s, right around the time, a couple years after that Island, of course, started. And I went into it, and I talked about over my other channel how a certain movie came out in the exact year that Island went into business. Here's actually the interview where he says he was once his friend. But here's the movie where Tom Cruise is in this movie, Nicole Kidman. Stanley Kubrick was the director, who, of course, wanted to keep 20 minutes in the movie that they wanted to cut out, and then mysteriously Stanley Kubrick, of course, died after that for some reason before the movie was finished. Oh, that's kind of weird. This movie obviously is referring to this kind of place, if you've ever watched it, about the top, guys, partying and all this kind of stuff, and the strange things, of course, they would do. And it came out the exact year that the Island started, literally the exact year. This is also the exact same time when Wesley Snipes, Mel Gibson, a ton of other people, Brendan Fraser, who else? Val Kilmer, just like a ton of different actors, all of a sudden couldn't get parts anymore, even though they were in blockbuster movies and made tons of money. All of a sudden they couldn't get in any parts anymore. And of course, shortly after that, Mel Gibson gets pulled over for a DUI and says something, gets himself in trouble. Remember that whole thing?
Mm.
Robert Downey Jr. saved him, saying we need to forgive him eventually. This was all around the exact same time. Our president stopped being friends with them. All these actors started to not be able to get parts anymore because maybe they weren't, in the club, quote unquote. And of course, also our president started campaigning, saying that he was going to out all this. He did it on the campaign trail. I think he was literally going to do this. But what I think happened was someone convinced him to hold on to it, at least temporarily, to use it as leverage. This is my theory. I think it's going to come out. And the reason why I think it's going to come out is because there's so much pressure from the public. And apparently, according to the statistics, at least back in May, about 65, 70% of the public across the board, left, right, wherever, independent. Matter of fact, independent was higher than left or right, wanted this out, want this to be known. Okay. So, of course, we have this prediction from Kim Clement about Strange July. Indeed, this has been a strange July, hasn't it? We were correct. This is indeed Strange July. But many will fall in the fall, meaning that's probably when it will come out, either early fall or before fall. It will come out, and then many will fall in the fall. And if it's as bad as Coverstone said, I heard it on his channel. I'm pretty sure it was his channel. It might not have been. It might have been on Prophecy, Club. It could have been that channel. I can't remember which one it was, but.
Retire with more at Bella Vista Haven in Sydney's Hills District. The Corimbia residences are now selling. Brand new apartments, stunning penthouses, and resort-style amenities. Display apartments now open. Search Bella Vista Haven and book a tour today.
Yeah, Coppet's not even in big trouble, boy.
At the end of the day, I know a bit of it.
Of the billions of stars, 8 adorn the energy rating of Aldi's 8-kilogram heat.
There ain't going to be a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of people gone in the GOV if this is true, and probably in a lot of other sectors of society. So if it really is that bad, they might need to get everything in place. I don't know. That could be another reason that they're holding off currently to get everything set up. I don't know, but that's another thing to consider. But I kind of feel like it's a leverage thing too. Why else would they have to come out and say it right now? Why couldn't they just wait it out? You know what I mean? Then getting over to some other topics here. We have here floods apparently in many places, Tokyo, record-shattering rainfall, Slam City, they had sirens playing. Look at that. What is that? Oh my goodness. Bro. That's a lot of water.
Are they drains backpedaling? Back washing?
I think that was water flowing downhill or something. I don't know what's going on there. So they had some sirens playing. This is obviously something strange going on in Tokyo, but apparently it's going on all across America too as well. North Carolina. We all know about Texas. But actually, it's more than you might imagine. 256 flood warnings across 33 states in only 6 days. And this map shows you kind of what's going on. So we can get it, I don't know. The one in Texas obviously looks like the most concentrated, but you can see quite a bit over here.
Yeah.
Is that you got South North Carolina,
so.
you got some other states in there as well.
I've got
Pennsylvania
some.
and others.
I gave you a packet and you smoked it in one day.
And you even have it over here in Missouri and Oklahoma and stuff like that too.
You smoked it in 24
lots
hours.
of flood warnings across America, particularly on the East Coast and the southern part of the country.
I gave you enough. Yeah,
all at the same time.
Yours, yeah. I don't want to give them to you. You can't stop smoking.
And of course, there seem to be states that tended to be more for presidents. You notice that a little bit?
No.
And of course, interestingly, they're also.
I have got smokes for you.
I've seen some arguments on how they want to have New York City.
Yeah, come and get one.
Then they want to get Texas fully. If they can turn it, of course, blue, then it's game over. And one of the issues for them is they need to have a lot of, migrants to get it blue. And these states are trying to stop that from happening. They're trying to send, of course, out a lot of these not so legals, as I call them. And maybe that's what all this is about. I don't know. You have also our president apparently announcing new tariffs. 50% tariff on copper.
Well, we're back on August
1st. We have a lot of other things that he's put tariffs on. Brazil 50%, Cambodia 36%. A lot of this is directed towards BRICS.
I was going to go to
countries that want to join BRICS.
I can still do that.
He's trying to punish them for this if they want to join. And I think this is a way to rein it in. I think he's trying to rein in these countries and sort of maintain our economy and trying to bring it up again. So I put him in a net positive on the economy. It's just this other huge topic we've been talking about. He's not doing it good at all on. Obviously needs to release, the files, but we have 35% tariff threats on Canadian goods. They double that what most other nations are charged. So he keeps screwing with Canada, saying he's going to put tariffs on them so he can push them the direction he wants. He's using his leverage. Again, I kind of feel like he's doing that with the files here, even though I think that's completely wrong. You should never do that. You should just release it. But then some are saying maybe it's because if they did release it, there wouldn't be enough people in the GOV or something like that. It might not run. I don't know. It sounds pretty crazy, but you have Treasury post unexpected.
I'd believe that. I reckon most of the politicians in most of the countries are corrupted by kitty stuff.
Plus,
or they wouldn't be in power.
June, as tariff receipts surge, 316 billion deficit. They just got 100 billion more in on the tariffs, so it's starting to go the right direction in respect to that. And of course, we have this. I had some stuff on Peter Thiel, but maybe I'll do that in another video. We have some stuff on how do you say this? Bridget Macron. Apparently, a woman who claimed that she was, a man, has been cleared, of course, of defamation. And also, strangely, there was another person, a doctor, a woman who claimed not a woman, it was no, a French surgeon, it's a guy, I think, French Choice, who vowed to reveal the truth on this. Apparently it died from, falling. It's kind of strange. Yeah, so you got that story. Then we got, of course, on top of that, this is from CoffeeZilla, showing a little bit of information about the man, the one with the island, of course, saying that they had provided, he'd agreed to provide information to the FBI. All right, so that was obviously some information. Then you got this right here. Alex Acosta, also from Florida, part of the plea deal, said that he had belonged, of course, to intelligence. And so you got lots of things like this you can go find from the past that make it very obvious that there's things going on here, my friends. And at any rate, so I think you get kind of the idea. You also have this one, the fact that you have this little, of course, book that clearly had names in it and people that were, obviously what we would call a list. So you got all these things. It's just so obvious, right? And at any rate, I'm going to get into some more on my next video, maybe about Peter Thiel. But the fact is, you had Val Kilmer, you had all these actors fall off at the exact same time that this, island went into business exactly around the time when our president stopped being friends with him, once he learned about this probably. And so it is kind of interesting looking into all this. The only way that some of these actors could get back into big movies was in the case of Val Kilmer on Top Gun, the latest one. Tom Cruise invited him in. You had also with Wesley Snipes getting invited into Wolverine and Deadpool, or Deadpool and Wolverine, I think is how you said it. And it was like this on all of them. Matter of fact, even Wesley Snipes got invited into The Expendables by Sylvester Stallone. They had to literally be invited into movies, or movies that are made independently too, in some cases. Or they had to be their own director, literally make their own movies like Mel Gibson did. At any rate, this is my video. I'm kind of wondering what some of you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.
Okay, guys, I'll finish with Prophecy from Sam. Looks good too.
I know. Really? Welcome to the Prophecy Club. Our topic today is sabotage in America. I know. Really? Well, unfortunately, that's what the prophecies say is coming. So, communists, what do they believe? They don't believe there is a God, and they attack people that do. Whereas we Christians, we fight communism, but we don't fight it with holding up signs. The weapons of warfare are not carnal, they're not flesh. They're mighty through God and pulling down of strongholds. We fight communism with the Bible. We fight on our knees because that's where our real strength is. But I'm telling you, we Americans, we Christians, we got to start fighting this. And I almost never hear that word communism any place, written or oral, on TV or anything. But that's the real problem, and I'm going to show you today.
He's right.
So these are some flags of nations that are based upon communism. Yes, I know you want to be real technical about it. Some of them are also Muslim. But nevertheless, if you look at the scripture, it says, "And there appeared another wonder in heaven, behold, a great red dragon." If you go back into the Old Testament, blue, which is why I wear blue, is the color of God. And red is the color of Satan. There's the scripture that proves it. We invite you to the Prophecy, Healing, and Deliverance Conference, September 11th through 13th. And I have my lovely wife, Leslie, going to tell you what she is going to be talking on. Leslie?
Yes, I'm going to be talking on the role of a prophet. There's so many
First time I've seen his wife.
voices out there today that are calling themselves prophet, but we're going to get into what is really the authority and the role of a prophet. So maybe we'll have a better understanding. Maybe you'll find out that you are a prophet, or maybe you'll find out you're not a prophet. And then I'm going to talk about the greatest problem for Christians. There's one thing that really causes problems for all of us. I also will be talking on closing those open doors. That's what I'm going to talk on. And I think that you'll want to stay for the 14th for a church service, because you can ask us questions while they're there that day. And also, there's going to be a great opportunity just to meet and greet with us during the conference time from September the 11th to the 13th. And then stay for church on the 14th.
And you can meet the world famous Leslie. We're glad to have you. Go to prophecyclub.com and register. Prophecyclub.com. Sign up today. If you don't want to lose your life savings, if you have an IRA or a 401k, then think
there is 401k, not 404k.
it is called 800-200 Gold. 800-200 Gold. These folks are Christians, and they specialize in helping people not lose their life savings in the event of a stock market crash and things like that. Look, most of the 401ks, most of the IRAs are in paper, backed by paper. And as Lindsey Williams says, if it's in paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. You can lose it all. 1-800-200-GOLD. 800-200 Gold. Hey, give them a call. Doesn't hurt, doesn't cost you anything. See if they can give you some good advice. Okay, so let's go to Daniel Davis. Now, I read his scene 1 and 2 a couple of days ago, so I'm not going to cover that again. But this is 3, and this is confirming what we're talking about today. This is October 2012 when he spoke to the Prophecy Club. Scene 3 of his dream said, I was standing in a very modern war room, which had video screens everywhere on the wall. These screens were showing scenes from different places around the world, modern world events, etc. In the middle of the room was President George W. Bush II. He was surrounded by counselors and advisors. He had his hands up in the air as if to say, I don't want to hear anymore. I'm tired and worn out. Now, George Bush was just something that the Lord filled in the blank there. But I think what it's saying is every American president, especially Trump right now, the big battle is communism. That's what it's about to say. Mm-hmm. A large man said, the president has fought a long, hard battle and is very tired. He's been fighting a very powerful enemy. Do you know what enemy that is? And I said, socialism. He responded with a very stern voice saying, no, communism. So the Lord has told us our...
Okay, I don't know what the difference between socialism and communism is. There must be a difference, though.
Real enemy? Our real enemy is communism. And again, if you don't know you're in a battle, you're losing. And if you don't know who the enemy is, you're losing. And I think most Christians, most Americans don't know that communism is the real enemy. Okay, let's go on. So I've read this many, many times, but I want to show you something. Dimitri Duda was told August 3rd of 1984 when the angel Gabriel came to him the first night he arrived in Israel, in America. And the angel said the fall of America will start with an internal revolution in America started by the communists. Now, to me, this is proof that we have communists in our nation. And it's further proof that our real battle is with communists. I need not read the rest of it. You can pause and read if you want to. But this is my interpretation today. The fall of America will start with an internal revolution in America, overthrowing the Trump administration in America started by the communists. Look at who is attacking Trump.
With all the military on the road, I can't see him pulling a coup on Trump.
Oh, I know, you're going to say the leftists. You say Democrats. Well, even the Democrats are saying the Democrats of today are not my dad's Democrats. The Democrats of today are not really Democrats. Of course, this Mamdani guy that's running for mayor up in New York City is openly a communist. So when they're saying left, when they're saying Democrats, many maybe even most of the time, it's really a communist. Now, what's the difference? We Christians believe in one God. Communists believe there is no God, period. And they are in a real strap battle, scratching and clawing to destroy the Bible, Christians, and Christianity. I mean, that's the whole thing about all of this woke stuff. That's the whole thing about, well, you know, we're going to change gender and men can go in and play in women's sports. It's all part of destroying Christianity. That's the real goal here.
Yep.
Now, let me go on. The fall of America will start with an internal revolution overthrowing the Trump administration in America, started by the communists. Some of the communists will start fighting against the Trump government. The Trump government will be busy with internal problems. Then Russia and her buddies attack. Now, remember the word communist. But I want to go through, and I don't think I've ever read this on the radio before. This is part of Dimitri's message. And I want you to hear two words. I want you to hear Bibles, and I want you to hear communists. Because Romania is a communist country, was and still is, and it's fighting against the Bible and against Christians. Listen to this. This is part of his testimony, Dimitri Dudeman. He said, going through churches, I saw there were no Bibles. 600, 800 members, and if they had 2 or 3 Bibles, it was great. I said, God, what is this? Because I knew Bibles were coming in through the Black Sea. I asked the pastors, why don't you have any Bibles? Oh, Brother Dimitri, the Bibles come in through the what? Communist hands. Okay, the communists didn't bring them in. The communists interdicted them. Now, let's go on. The Bible's coming through the communist hands. The communists sell them to us. The next day, they tell the police, and the police confiscate them, which means we bought them all for nothing. So how can the communists hurt the Christians even more than not giving them Bibles? By giving them Bibles, selling them to them at probably a pretty high price, then the police come and confiscate them the next day. That way, the communists made money, but the Christians didn't get any Bibles. Let's go on. The brothers would write verses down out of the Bible and sit outside the door. When you would come in, they would give you a verse of the Bible, and the brothers were glad just to have a verse. But in America, libraries are full of Bibles. Shelves are full of Bibles. In your house, everywhere I look, there's a Bible in every house. But in many homes, when I touch the Bible, my fingerprints are on it. I say, don't you even wipe the dust off? Don't you read the Bible? The mother of all books is the Bible. The Bible is the Word of God. With the Word of God in you, the devil cannot be victorious over you. If you want to be victorious over the mark of the beast, it starts with having the Word of God in your heart. Matter of fact, I'll say everything about getting closer to God, serving God, everything all starts with the Bible, King James Version, in my opinion. When I saw there were no Bibles in the churches, I spoke to my family. I went to the commander of the pier, and I told him, Mr. Commander, I got married. I have nothing to support my family. He hired me as a cook for 2 months. I went with the thought of meeting missionaries so the Bibles would not come into the communist hands anymore. After 2 months, I heard an audible voice in my ear, Dimitri, run to the pier. Dave is coming. I left the kitchen and ran to the side of the ship. The first man who came out was Dave. He said, peace of God to you, Dave. When he saw that I was now a civilian, because they had kicked him out of the military because he was a Christian, he started crying. He didn't know what had happened to me. He said, meet me in a hotel in the city, because the Romanians could not talk to foreigners. If they catch me speaking to a foreigner, I would have at least 6 months jail sentence. I went to the hotel. There we went into a room and prayed together. We went to the capital, Bucharest. There I met Brother Andrew in the works with Open Doors, and Brother Wormbert and Brother Harlan Popov. We spoke together and agreed to bring Bibles in. I would give them to the churches with the help of God. In a period of 3 years, most all of the churches had Bibles. The point is, communism is our real enemy in America. And the real solution is Bibles. I'm saying, if you aren't reading your Bible on a real regular basis, I mean, like at least weekly, if not daily, I think you're making a big mistake. I think that it's important that we memorize the Bible because the day is going to come, so says Brandon Biggs, that they confiscate the Bibles here in America, have big burning parties like they did in Nazi Germany. When the communist government found out, they closed the borders all around us so no more foreigners could bring in Bibles. The churches kept praying to God, and this is why we need prayer. God sent a powerful rain in 1970. Over half of Romania was flooded. There were lots of losses. People drowned, factories went down the river. When the communist government saw this, they asked for help of the foreigners, and they reopened the borders. Here it is. Bibles started coming in freely. Nobody would check for Bibles anymore. For 4 years, Bible came in freely. I want you to hear two words. I want you to hear communists. I want you to hear Bibles. Communists, the godless, that don't believe in God, are the enemy, and the Bible and Jesus and the Holy Spirit is the solution. It's the remedy. Now let's jump to a couple of newspaper articles. Sounds like a lot of sedition. Former USAID crew allegedly playing sabotage. Oh, sabotage in America? Never heard of that. Planning sabotage for U.S. government. The widespread practice of simple sabotage will harass and demoralize enemy administration.
I was never here. You're right. That's what the Hitler Youth Movement was about. It was about pedos. And Rowan, the guy who ran the brown shirts, he was behind all that. That's why Hitler unalived him, because he had too much info on Hitler's sexual orientation, and it wasn't towards women, believe me.
Traders and police. The article says now under President Trump, multiple thousands of USAID workers are now ex-employees. With the official closure of the agency just days ago, and a few jobs considered important transferred to the State Department, with a few hundred leftover workers. But among those thousands of USAID workers, now apparently is a contingent planning to sabotage the United States. Let me read that again. Thousands of former USAID workers, these are the people that were giving not millions, billions of dollars to our enemy, to foreign countries, giving our hard-earned tax dollars away. Now they're out of a job, but they're saying they're not out of a job. They're saying a contingent planning to sabotage the United States. Oh, surely not. I hope you are understanding.
Yeah.
I hope you're listening. This is some of the people will start fighting against the government. U.S. Senator Eric Schmidt, a Republican from Missouri, paraphrased the intent. If you stop letting us run America, we'll start a color revolution. Color revolution? Okay, that's black or any other color. Any color skin against the white. In other words, and it's really not a color revolution. It's really a communist versus a Christian, versus a godless versus a God-believing person. Now, remember, Benjamin Fulford was told, we ruled this planet for thousands of years, we'll destroy it rather than give it up. And they will do that. If you stop letting us run America, we'll start a color revolution. There it is. Look at the word. We'll start an internal revolution. They're telling us what we're doing, what they're going to do. It's just that most people don't believe the prophets, and they sure don't like Prophecy Club, and they sure don't like me, and they don't like what we say. But then that's the way it's always been. People don't like what God says. You know, the prophets have always been sawed in half and boiled in oil and cooked alive inside of a brass bull nailed to a cross. If you stop letting us run America, we'll start a color revolution and overthrow your democratically elected government. Let me read it again. If you stop letting us run America, we'll start an internal revolution and overthrow your Trump administration.
How does that again?
Or did I misunderstand something? Is that what it said? That's exactly what it said. If you stop letting us control you and overthrow you and throw your money away. If you stop our overthrowing of America, we'll overthrow you quickly rather than slowly. He added, these people are making a case for their own firing better than we ever could. Some of the democracy-building experts President Donald Trump fired this year from the U.S. Agency for International Development and State Department are now applying the skills and the knowledge of destroying the knowledge they built up over decades to undermine Trump's power. These are very skilled people that have a lot of power. They've been handling billions of dollars for apparently many years now. And they have people that have been receiving large amounts of money around the world. And you might say they are people that know how to start an internal revolution. They know how to overthrow governments. Truth be known, they probably have been overthrowing governments for years now. They probably have overthrown most of the governments of the world. These are the people that work behind the curtain, behind the back, under the table to destroy. Look at what it says. If you don't let us destroy America the slow way, our way, we'll destroy it the fast way. Then you go on down now, reapplying our skills and knowledge that we built up over decades to undermine Trump's power. In other words, to bring down America. For years, these officials were stationed across the globe, actively supporting opposition movements, actively trying to destroy America. They've been actively doing this behind the scenes, behind the back. But now they're not going to do it behind the back anymore. That's what they're saying. Supporting opposition movements in autocratic nations. Now they've got time, a network of former colleagues, and a growing sense of moral indignation. Moral indignation. See, they think they're doing right. There's a scripture that says that they kill you thinking that they do it God's service. These people think they're doing good by overthrowing the Christian nation. And it's going to turn to killing Christians. It's going to turn to lopping off Christian heads. One said in an interview with Notice, take it from those who worked in the authoritarian countries, we've become one. In other words, they're unified into one objective, to carry on and destroy America, to destroy the last Christian nation. They were so quick to disband AID, the group that supposedly investigates color.
Mate, you're not the last Christian nation. Australia's a Christian nation too. That's a bit arrogant, Stan.
Revolutions. But now what they've done is a very foolish thing. Listen carefully. You just released a bunch of well-trained individuals into your population. No. Let me rephrase it. You just released a bunch of people set on starting an internal revolution and overthrowing Trump and America. I remember in 1987 when I first heard Dimitri Duduman, 1988, excuse me. Internal revolution? How can we have an internal revolution? Well, today I see it. They don't like Trump, personally.
That's true. 10 years ago, you wouldn't think there'd possibly be a revolution. But the way these guys are carrying on, they're going to try it.
And they certainly don't like that he's a Christian. And they don't like that he is throwing out their DEI and he's bringing in merit-based. He's doing everything he can to destroy.
He's a kid. I've seen that guy before.
For some 70 or 80 years to build up behind the scenes. They don't like it. They're mad. And they're going to do something about it. So, let me just say something. Let me say something from the heart. I've been doing this since 1993. Prophecy Club. Radio, TV, now internet. And I don't feel like people are listening.
Oh, damn.
I visited, I don't know if I should say this. Here it is. I got this email. This is the paper version of the email. It's a pastor, local pastor, invited me to come to his church to hear about people talking about speakers. Now we're working on getting Power of Jesus Crusades going, so I thought it would be important for me to update myself on audio. I'm not going to get emotional. But when I left, leaving that front door of that massive church, walking to my car, me and God had a talk. And I don't know if I can tell you. I don't know if I can tell you. I got home, I called Leslie. I said, this is depressing. I said, you know, I've been working a lot of years trying to reach people. They don't want to listen. They don't want to hear me.
Yeah.
And here I walk into this church that has 4,000 people on a Sunday. It's a 10-minute drive from where I live. And it started 20 years ago. Well, the church we started in Plano, it started 20 years ago. And it has 30, 40 people. They have 4,000. And so, yeah, I guess I told Leslie, I said, I feel real rejected. I told her a couple of hours later when I was working on today's program, I said,
Boss, I know how he feels. I've been sitting on 320 subscribers for over a year. Something's going on there where they're blocking people to get access to my channel, because there's no way I started, you usually pick up about 8 or 9 subs a day, but this just stopped at 316 and now it's at 322, and it's been that way the whole series. Not impressed.
got to shake this off. She said, what? I said, I'm normally never down. I'm never depressed. I said, but this has got to me. I just don't feel, I'm not going to get emotional. I don't feel like I'm being listened to.
He's frustrated.
I don't feel like I'm being treated right. But that's really not it. That's really not saying it right. It's not about me. It's not my message. I didn't sit on the electric chair twice. I didn't go through 5 months of torture. Dimitri did. And he went through that so that people would listen and believe him. But do they? No. I'm telling people this. And I looked in that church and I said, you know, they got $1 million just in speakers. Just in speakers is run the church. I asked the guy, he said, well, it's not exactly $1 million. Seats 4,500 people. A massive building, a big ministry. And I'm thinking, what am I doing wrong? Okay, that's probably all I should say. Let me go on with this. Start getting emotional here. He says, if you keep our office going, and we had just let us play solitaire in the office, it might have been better and safer for your nation than losing all of these revolutionaries, what they're saying. These people that are going to try to tear down America, try to start an internal revolution. It would have been better if you'd have done that. But now, because you fired us, you turned us loose on America. That's what they're saying. Look at it. I didn't write the thing. Let's go on. America's unelected bureaucrats feel more entitled to rule than most monarchs who believe that they were appointed by God. It's that insane. In other words, this whole release of millions of USAID and others into our nation, fired them, and they have very evil talents connected with evil people, and now they're going to work to destroy our nation. Some of the people will start fighting against the government. The government will be busy with their internal problems. Then from the oceans, Russia, Cuba, Nicaragua, Central America, Mexico, and 2 of the countries will attack and destroy America in 1 hour. Let me go on. Twitchy noted, that sounds like a lot of sedition, a lot like a direct threat, and a lot like someone who belongs in a jail cell, not in an office of Foggy Bottom. Now he's talking about the USAID workers. Deep state bureaucrats think they have a right to a government job and ultimately a right to rule. Now that they are unemployed, they want to foment an insurrection, internal revolution. And that's what it sounds like to me. What I'm saying is we are at the door.
Yep.
The internal revolution is starting.
Yep.
Dimitri went all across this nation up and
I couldn't see that 6 months ago how possibly there could be a revolution in your country. Or not your country, it's only me and you now, Vast. But looking at it now, that's exactly what's going on.
down left and right for some 10 years, speaking in churches, radio, TV stations, busy giving his message. How many churches mention the name Dimitri now? How many churches? You know why? Because the people won't hear it. I walked from the front doors of that church out to my car. Part of what I was saying is, I'm sorry, I'll get emotional if I talk much about it. I was saying, you know what? I don't know what this guy's doing. I mean, I'm happy that a lot of people are attending. I'm happy he has, big, nice building. I'm brand new. I mean, wow. It's wow. It's wow. But it's depressing because they won't listen to the message that I carry. It's not my message.
Okay, Vast, I'm out, mate. God bless.
I called